by Design podcast from Signal Media. I'm Kimberly Underwood, the Director of Digital News Media at Signal, which is the official news outlet of AFCEA International. I'm so excited to introduce this episode. It is a special one. It is from AFCEA International's Inclusive, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility Initiative, also known as IDEA, and it features a panel of experts from the IDEA community, which was a session at TechNet Cyber 2024, which was held in Baltimore the week of June 24th. For those who don't know, the IDEA effort is to ensure all AFCEA programs and initiatives reflect the fabric of our country and establish a sense of belonging for everyone, understanding that each member is unique while recognizing and embracing individual differences, providing a culture in which all members can connect, contribute, and be themselves, and assisting leaders and members across its chapters to realize these goals. Addressing diversity means understanding that each member is unique while recognizing and embracing individual differences, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, and physical abilities. A top priority of AFCEA's Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Accessibility Committee is to ensure leaders and members across the chapters understand we all play key roles in helping to realize these goals. IDEA aims to provide a culture in which all members can comfortably connect, contribute, and be themselves. We all share the responsibility for developing communities in which every member can contribute. And with that, here's the IDEA panel from TechNet Cyber 2024.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Shantae Russell, Vice President of Membership at AFCEA International, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's thought-provoking panel discussion brought to you by AFCEA's IDEA program. Our focus today is inclusive strategies for strengthening cybersecurity. As AFCEA membership continues to grow, so does our commitment to inclusivity. The AFCEA IDEA program, dedicated to inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, stands as a testament to our values. And we aim to ensure that every voice is heard and every perspective valued. While our panel boasts a rich tapestry of diversity, each member brings unparalleled expertise. Your presence here today, panelists, underscores your support for our collective mission, and we thank you sincerely for it. To start, I'd like to introduce Carrie Pullis to the stage to say a few words and introduce our moderator. Carrie is a U.S. DoD account manager with our panel sponsor, Sienna. We truly appreciate Sienna's generous, continued support for our AFCEA's IDEA efforts, along with their co-sponsor, Increditect. We're very, very happy to have Carrie join us today.
Thank you, Shantae. It is my pleasure to be here. My name is Carrie Pullis. I'm with the Sienna Government Group. We're here to support the IDEA panels and all other activities, as it does support our, I'm sorry. Oh, lost my place, okay. I'm a technical account manager that's been supporting DISA and its warfighters for the past 25 years for their communication needs. It's been an honor to be here and to see AFCEA growing so much. We have supported Women AFCEA and IDEA through sponsorships over the years because it does align with Sienna's People's Promise goal, which is that everyone does have a voice and everyone should be heard and should be honored. So thank you for attending today's panel, hosted by the AFCEA IDEA program, Inclusive Strategies for Strengthening Cybersecurity. I'd like to introduce the moderator for today's panel, Kenneth Flower Jr. Mr. Kenneth Flower Jr. serves as the National Guard Bureau Chief Technology Officer. In this position, he is the Principal Technical Resource Advisor for the NGB CIO J6, where he drives technological innovation and advancements. Mr. Flowers Jr. will...
Please join us for the networking reception.
Okay. Mr. Flowers Jr. will introduce our panelists and moderate the discussion. So please join me in a welcome for Mr. Flowers. Thank you.
Good afternoon, good afternoon. So I have two house rules. If you would like to come up while we're speaking, have a question, raise your hand, raise your pamphlet, please come up. We want to make this as interactive as possible. Second one, I promise there will be no evacuation today. I was told if there is one, I will be blamed since it happened during my session yesterday. So, all right, to begin, thank you for joining our panel of national security experts in a comprehensive discussion encompassing the evolving landscape of inclusion within the cybersecurity workforce, particularly addressing the challenges and opportunities for individuals who may require different accommodations in the workplace. As we navigate the intricate terrain of cyber threats, it's paramount to acknowledge and integrate diverse perspectives and talents into our defensive strategies. In this session, we will explore the imperative of fostering an inclusive environment within the cybersecurity sector where individuals with differing abilities contribute their unique skills and insights to fortify our cyber defenses. From adapting technologies to accommodate various needs to cultivating supportive workplace cultures, our panelists will delve into practical approaches for promoting accessibility and equity within the cyber workforce. Furthermore, we will examine the intersection of ability inclusion with our preparations for secure operations in disrupted and degraded environments. Recognizing that resilience in the face of cyber threats requires adaptability and resourcefulness, we will explore how harnessing the talents of diverse individuals enhances our capacity to thrive amidst adversaries. So, I know you were tired, that there was a lot, and I'm just gonna go to the main people here. Ms. Angela Dingle, Ms. Outerbridge, and Mr. Kloos. I'm gonna read their bios, and then we're gonna have introductions. We're gonna get to the meat, the nitty-gritty of this. So to begin off, I'm gonna introduce Ms. Angela Dingle. Ms. Angela Dingle is the founder of Deaf Cybercom, an online collaborative environment and ecosystem designed to create career opportunities for deaf women in cybersecurity. An award-winning business owner, she brings 25 plus years of experience consulting in the public and private sector. She has worked with Fortune 500 companies across the globe, national nonprofits, state, local, and federal governments to help them achieve their security objectives. Ms. Dingle is the CEO of Ex Nihilo Management, LLC, and hosts the Cyber Savvy CEO webinar series. She holds a Master of Science in Management Information Systems from Bowie State University, a Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from DeVry University, and is certified in the governance of enterprise information technology and is a certified management consultant. And Ms. Dingles is the author of Discovering Your Girl Powers, 10 Strategies to Build Confidence, Charisma, and Credibility. She is currently serving as acting CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy, is chairman of the board for the Institute of Management Consultants, a member of ISACA, and Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Please give a round of applause for Ms. Dingle. All right, next we have Ms. Monique Outerbridge. A seasoned healthcare IT executive with over 25 years of experience, Ms. Outerbridge has a proven track record in successfully delivering large-scale IT systems for priority health initiatives. She excels in providing strategic direction, enhancing efficiencies, and improving the quality of IT and business operations. Ms. Outerbridge dedicated 13 years to the U.S. federal government, where she played a pivotal role in health agencies such as the FDA and the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services. At CMS, she spearheaded major initiatives, including leading the implementation of the Affordable Care Act's health insurance marketplace. This involved collaboration with multiple federal agencies, the insurance industry, state governments, and direct engagement with the White House. After her federal tenure, Ms. Outerbridge transitioned to independent consulting, aiding companies in business development, capture work, and strategic program guidance. In 2018, she joined IBM as a partner overseeing its federal health HHS account, managing a 60+ million portfolio with consistent growth. She also served as an executive sponsor for programs supporting IBM's commitment to diversity, inclusion, and equity, particularly for small minority-owned businesses. In 2023, Ms. Outerbridge pursued a passion for leadership developed by founding Indigo Executive Solutions. Her expertise in executive coaching and consulting is driven by a passion for personal transformation and executive leadership. She focuses on unlocking authenticity, harnessing innate strengths, and fostering self-awareness. By amplifying these strengths, she empowers leaders to drive business strategies, inspire their teams, paving the way for unparalleled success. Please give a round of applause for Ms. Outerbridge. And last but not least, the infamous
The least.
Mr. Dustin Cluse. Correct, Cluse?
No, that's not right, but it's close enough.
Well, give me the right pronunciation.
Close.
Close. Hilarious. All right. Mr. Dustin Close serves as the Chief Growth Officer at Vision IT, where he spearheads strategic initiatives aimed at bolstering revenue and amplifying the company's footprint in the industry. His achievements in business development are attributed to his pragmatic, straightforward approach, which ensures Vision IT's trajectory remains upward. Mr. Close has over 30 years of proven performance in multiple federal markets and technology sectors with specific expertise in leadership, cyber, and information technology. His accolades include the successful management of multiple portfolios in excess of $100 million and effectively overseeing a dedicated team of more than 400 IT professionals. As a leader in GovCon, Dustin is characterized by his unwavering commitment to people, compassion, and morale, which resonates profoundly with the walls of Vision IT's foundational principles. Mr. Close's academic credentials include a master's degree in information systems from the University of Phoenix, a Bachelor of Applied Science in Computer Information Systems from Wayland Baptist University, and a multitude of industry certifications. He is a devoted husband, father, and an aficionado of music, golf, and cigars. And can we include boats?
I do like a good boat, a good houseboat. Hashtag see me in Augusta.
So everybody, please give us a final round of applause. And now we will begin with the questions. So to start off, this is going to be a very conversational panel. I wanted to ask each of you all, what was your passion, your drive to join today's panel? What brought you here? If you could start off, Angela.
I guess I'll jump in first. Mike Black, who is sitting here in the front row, and I both belong to the same business network. And when he assumed the role that he did at AFCEA, we kind of talked about how the work that we do in the deaf community related to cyber could fit in with the initiatives that AFCEA has in the ideas segment of the business. And so it was an honor and a pleasure to come out today and be able to talk to you about how there are communities of untapped potential, the deaf community being one, that can help us all to achieve our initiatives from a cybersecurity standpoint and to expand our workforces. Thank you.
Monique?
Well, I ran into Alvy here, Mr. Johnson, and I spoke at a CMS event a few weeks ago, several weeks ago, maybe it was a couple months ago now. And he noted my passion for speaking out about going against the grain, and I hear a lot about, people disrupting, right, being disruptive leaders, and usually they talk about disrupting some technology or process, but I'm looking for leaders to be disruptive in how they lead, really changing the course on how they view what success is, what leadership truly is. So I was excited when he approached me and said, hey, why don't you come speak at this conference? When frankly, when I finished speaking at the conference he saw me at, I figured I would never get invited back there. So, so let's see how this one goes today.
I'm sure you're going to do very well, very well. Dustin.
I'm just here so I don't get fined. Obviously, I know a lot of you guys that are out in the audience, but I truly do have a passion for people, a passion for leading, a passion for diversity, and I'm always surprised when people who know me or spend any time around me, they find out that I'm neurodivergent and they're like, "Wow, I didn't even know," and I'm like, "Wow, that's great. Thank you for not noticing that all my crazy idiosyncrasies that I have, because there's plenty of them." But just the ability to come and talk about the inclusion of that community, the inclusion of other communities, and then just to get up here and sit up with these fine individuals. I've seen them all speak at multiple events, and it's just an honor to be asked to be on the panel and to be with you guys. So that's really why I'm here.
All right, thank you for that. So the second question is a two-part question. First, could you share examples of how organizations have successfully promoted accessibility and equity within the cybersecurity workforce? And whoever wants to take this first?
All right, I'll jump in again. So there are a number of organizations in different industries that are doing well with respect to incorporating a diverse workforce and creating accessibility and inclusion. I will tell you honestly that I don't see a lot of that in cybersecurity. I know a number of companies are working on that, right? I had a conversation with someone from Google. So Google is looking at how they can use the technology that is available to them to create spaces that create spaces where people with different needs are accepted and able to achieve their career goals. In the financial space, companies, Fortune 500 companies like MasterCard are really exploring what changes they need to make, not just with respect to technology, but the changes that they need to make in terms of the culture and in terms of the policies that will allow them to bring in different people into their workforce. And then companies like BAE Systems have a really well-documented and proven benchmark process for creating accessibility, in particular with people who have skills and differences like Justin does. So not necessarily something specific around cyber, but certainly a number of companies that have figured out we've got to create space, and that's the issue, being able to create space so that people who have talents and abilities that can help us to solve business and defense and civilian challenges that need to be addressed, so that they have a place where they can come in and be a part of that workforce.
Okay.
So what's interesting is I was really hoping, because Angela's been in this cyber world a lot longer than me, so I just knew she was going to give an example of like some really great stuff. But when I'm thinking about, even in my history, I was thinking, God, I don't know that I've seen anything outstanding in the cyber world. There have been a number of other, even if I take my experience back when initially implementing the Affordable Care Act, the federal government likes to pride itself on providing all these frameworks and promises. And I think back in 2021, the president just issued another executive order around accessibility with respect to cybersecurity. But I really do not see how much progress has been made. When implementing the Affordable Care Act, we were, oh yes, 508 compliant and blah, blah, blah. And then we still found ourselves bumping against the wall and getting complaints where it just wasn't good enough. And I still don't know that I've seen anything that has made any great strides, whether it's in the federal government or any major company. And I just left IBM a year ago. That really is something that I can sit up here and say, yeah, something wonderful has happened recently. It just hasn't. There's room for growth.
Yeah, I would just say that I think it's important that you kind of have a meet in the middle approach, right? You're going to have policies that come out from the top saying, you know, we have to have 508 compliance, we have to have all these things in place for accessibility. But sometimes it takes a lot of effort for that to kind of trickle all the way down. So, you know, all I would say is for those that are out there in the inclusion warriors out here, you know, take up the mantle yourselves, right? Whenever you have the opportunity to promote, whenever you have the opportunity to educate, whenever you have the opportunity to help somebody else out, take that opportunity, right? Because it's the grassroots meeting from the top-down policies that's going to kind of help filter and close that gap. I just remember working a few years ago in another organization. We had an individual that had worked in the organization a long time, and he had some medical issues, and he lost his sight. He was losing his sight. It was very bad. And so, you know, anybody that's been in an organization, maybe mine's unique, but we were a little bit behind in documenting everything that we needed to do and capturing all the knowledge that we needed to do to know how to operate. So it's very difficult when you lose a very seasoned cybersecurity person or somebody in an organization, because they take a long time to build that institutional knowledge. And so one thing that we were able to do was to say, okay, well, you know, try to work with the individual and find out what his exact needs were. So we were able to get him some speech reading software for his screen to read the speeches to him. We actually pulled one of our large screen monitors off in our conference room, and we put that conference room monitor, that huge TV, on his desk. Right? It looked kind of crazy, but he needed that text to be that big for him to see it. Right? So it's when you see an opportunity like that, take that opportunity to try and help that individual to marry the policies that are coming on the top down.
Thank you.
Question.
Oh, you want that?
I think this gentleman had a question.
Was there a question in the audience?
You kind of answered
He ain't going to.
Alvy.
So, Dustin, I think you answered the question because I was going to ask you, what does that look like as you talk about accessibility issue? Because a lot of time we think we understand what accessibility looks like. But so I really wanted to kind of push out on that. What does that look like to the average person in a company of trying to solve an accessibility issue?
Right.
Okay.
I think that's a really great question, and in particular with my focus on members of the deaf community, deaf and hard of hearing community, hearing people make assumptions about what technology and resources are available that are not necessarily correct. And it really boils down to not necessarily having to create a unique solution for everyone, but asking the question so that you understand clearly what that individual needs. There have been a number of advances in technology, even with people who wear hearing aids. Now the hearing aids have Bluetooth capability, so I have members of my staff who make a choice. Sometimes they want to connect their Bluetooth hearing aid to a Zoom or a Teams meeting, and sometimes they don't. We make the assumption that because closed captioning is available, that it's the best thing since sliced bread, and I'm certain that my colleagues here in the front row will tell you that is absolutely horrible, right? So it really boils down to having a conversation with the people that you're bringing onto your team to really just kind of think outside of the box. We have hearing cultures that say, hey, instead of me getting up and going over to talk to the person, I'm going to, kind of holler across the room, or it just boils down to really trying to understand what the needs of the individual are. The work that we do with corporations is to really change the mindset of the leadership and the people who are designating the work that needs to be done, to say, how do we think differently about how we achieve that? How do we design our physical structures? How do we design the workday? A lot of teams have these 15-minute check-ins where people just walk over to the water cooler and sit around and talk. That doesn't necessarily work for a person who has different abilities. And so being willing and open to open the aperture and have a conversation with them without the fear of saying, oh, it's going to cost me too much money, because it might not cost a whole lot more money, right? They might just have a preference for how they want something done.
And in that same vein, when we're talking promoting accessibility and equity, how much of it is culture versus technology?
Oh, well, to me, it's more culture than anything. As Angela was just stating, a lot of times the technology is out there, but we've been so used to the people that have been in charge, they're still in charge. And there's no one else being asked to come and sit at the table. So, clearly as an African-American woman, there's been like a lot of fighting for a long time in the IT space, like, hello, we're here, we have a voice. No, do not make assumptions about what my community may want to see or how it interprets information or how you can reach and connect. It's the very same thing with anyone that may have an accessibility issue. If you are not asking them, how do you know? You cannot continue to make assumptions. Like, there's no way, when I was kind of screaming at someone, I remember 10 years ago, maybe 12, 15, like, how did we miss this? Because there was no one on my team that had a challenge with accessing the website. So then I was remembering, we didn't have anyone to test it this way. We didn't have anyone, shame on us. So, you listen, you learn, but at this point, since we've been having these conversations more, let's have leaders that are more proactive and making a concerted effort to include in your employment, include in your conversations, include in your leadership. That's what we're talking about with inclusion, because you can't continue to make these assumptions. You have to ask the people that are actually impacted by it.
Okay. Good. Okay. Next question, I want to get a little bit more technical. Since we're talking about the cyber.
Do you have a question?
Do we have a question? Oh, apologies. Go ahead.
Hi there. So as Gen Z enters the workforce, they seem to be a lot more aware of disabilities of all kinds and types. And with that, we've seen the rise of them pushing for the accommodations for everyone. Obviously, some disability accommodations are helpful to others as well who may not have a disability, but just from an ease of use standpoint. As more and more of those workers of that generation enter the workforce, do you see the conversation changing and the perceptions changing as well for that?
Who would like to take it first?
I'll take it.
Go for it.
So I'm like the Gen Z horse whisperer in my office, apparently, because there is a lot of challenges, I would say, in communication across the different generational contexts, for sure. We just recently did a culture survey in my office, and like one of the questions was like, who do you find the most difficult to lead? Who do you find the most difficult to work with? And I think I was the only person of my age bracket that said, I actually prefer working with Gen Z people. And they're like, great, we're just gonna make them all report to you because you apparently have this figured out. And I'm like, I don't have it figured out, but one thing that I'm not afraid to do is have a conversation. And I think that there's, usefulness in having those conversations and trying to figure out how to take those conversations from just conversations into actual implementations. And I think that's where Gen Z, I don't want to speak for y'all Gen Zers out there, but one thing that I've kind of gathered from some of the Gen Z folks that work for us is that that's where they get a little frustrated, is that the pace of which we are able to implement things sometimes is a little slower than what they would like for that to see, right? And so some of that comes down to like what you talked about, Angela, with understanding that there's going to be a cost, right? There's a cost to getting, hearing-enabled devices. There's a cost to sight-enabled devices. There's a cost to all these accessibility things you need to do. But there's also a cost to not having diversity in your portfolio when it comes to your workforce. There's a cost that we're already realizing as a cybersecurity workforce because we're so far behind with not having enough people to fill these roles that we have. So why would we continue to take on that cost of excluding a whole population of people where we can pull from that talent, right? So it's an investment, and you got to see it that way, not just as a cost. It's an investment in, your company getting better, your solutions getting better. So, that's, I don't know if I ramble, but
answer your question.
I'll take the nod. I'll take it.
So based off of that question, I'm gonna skip ahead. From your experience, what role does leadership play in fostering an environment of inclusivity and equity within cybersecurity teams, particularly in accommodating individuals who require different accommodations?
I'm always jumping in first, so I'll just do it again.
Jump in.
Go for it.
Jump in.
Leaders set the tone at the top. It starts with leadership, right? If leadership both verbally says we are establishing a culture where there is accessibility and inclusivity and equity for people that are different from who I am and who you are, then people begin to follow. If leaders implement policies that state those things and allow their teams to implement processes that state those things, and then not just talk the talk but walk the talk, I think you start to see change within an organization. That also means, though, that you have to put the financial backing behind it. You have to look at that from a recruiting standpoint and say, I want to recruit a diverse set of people that can help me to implement this. And then you have to reward that behavior from a leadership standpoint if that's what it is that you want. Because, we've got a diverse set of people here. I can guarantee that many of you have walked into a physical building where you see the mission statement built out on the wall in beautiful graphics and, the history of the organization. And then you start doing business with them and realize that it's just words. Leadership really takes it from being those words to embodying that for themselves. One of the things, I've been in technology since I was a very young woman, and I'm not going to tell you the age because then you'll figure out how old I am now. But one of the things that always used to drive me nuts is, when we first started having to secure our devices with passwords, you'd have the leaders of the organization going, I don't want to change my password, or I don't want to secure my laptop, or I don't want to do the things that we're telling all the other people to do. What message are you sending? While the lower level staff may implement those things, when you start getting up the leadership chain, then they go, I'm just like the boss. Like, I'm not doing that. You can't make me do that either. So it really does. You set the tone at the top, and I think that really moves things forward with respect to fostering an environment where inclusivity and equity exists.
Okay.
It's really hard, I think, especially for leaders that have been in their positions for 10, 15, 20 years, and they're just used to doing what they're doing, right? Particularly companies that are very focused on their growth margins, revenue. But we have to really start thinking about at what cost. When the pandemic happened, I think a lot of people started taking stock in a lot of different ways that they were either living their lives, how they were working, and what the impact was on them. So I'm even thinking about the fact that there were thousands of people who probably view themselves one way, but post 2021, 22, there's a whole different outlook, a whole different way that people are thinking, and a different way that they just want to manage and live their lives. And leaders have the opportunity now, and I know a few leaders, myself included, that says something's not working, something's broken. I'm tired, I'm miserable, I'm passing on this whole more, nothing is ever enough. And the Gen Zers that are coming in, God bless them. And even some millennials, they're like, that work-life balance is important. I'm not doing it, and I don't blame them. If I was smart enough back in, and I won't say when either, because I'm not saying how old I am, Gen X are on board, but I wish we had the guts to stand up and say enough is enough. And enough is enough is a culture shift in itself. When you are able to stand up and tell your leaders, and everyone looks at some of these other companies that have really done amazing things. I'm rambling a bit, but I remember I went to I don't know how many leadership training sessions when I was with IBM ad nauseum. And I learned about all these companies that did things that were just crazy. Oh no, we're gonna do something completely different. We're gonna spin it on its head. And I would get excited and I would come back to IBM. I'm like, I'm gonna spin it on its head. And it was like, no, you're not. You're gonna hit this target. You're gonna do what you gotta do. And there was just not enough time. So when you are investing time, and we know that equals money, it is worth the investment. When you can begin to shift the culture of, I'm gonna stop long enough to give people some room to breathe. I'm gonna stop long enough to give myself some room to breathe. When was the last time that any leader in this room took a minute for themselves? No death in the family, no the kids have a graduation, no, when did anyone ever take the time to say, I just need a break, one day. Don't check your email, don't check the phone, just turn it off. Because I think we realize that we're probably all having some accessibility challenges here than we realize. And once we become more empathetic to our own needs, we can open ourselves to become more empathetic to what others need as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is that, the whole role of a leader is to influence, right? So leaders come in at all different levels. It's not just the ones that are running the organizations that I would consider leaders. Some of the biggest leaders we have in our company are some of the Gen Zers coming in who are being a voice and making change happen in that organization, and I think it's great. So I would just say that, don't be afraid to step up and be a leader for those that can't lead themselves, right? Don't be afraid to be the voice for the voiceless, the sight for the sightless. Be an advocate. Reach out and lead in that area for your companies and for your sections and your organizations.
Thank you for that. Next question. How do you see the intersection of ability, inclusion, and cyber resiliency shaping the future of operational missions?
Is that me?
Yes, you.
Which question we
I
on?
was curious. I was going to jump in again.
Number 2. See, now you're glad I gave you the paper.
Yeah. Here's a...
We talked about this, Dusty.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for those of you that don't know, I'm the neurodivergent one on the panel. There's things that come with that, right? So my super squared away moderators give us these sheets. But as a neurodivergent person, now all I can do is hyper-focus on try to read this and figure out where I'm at on this sheet, so I'm not listening to where we're at in the conversation or what I'm supposed to be answering, which also comes to understanding the difference in people's abilities, right? And where you can, understanding, because like one thing that somebody's like, oh, poor Dustin, he's neurodivergent, he needs more time to do something. Don't ever, if any of you guys ever work with me, do not give me a long timeline, because your stuff will get forgotten and I will not deal with it. As a person in my particular stance, I have to have short deadlines with lots of pressure to keep me on track moving in a person. But that's just understanding the the challenges that I personally have. But
let me ask this a different way. Can I? Okay. How do you see technology impacting those within the DoD workforce, those soldiers, our airmen? How do you see inclusion, ability, IDEA in general?
Yeah.
What's the impact to our forces?
I mean, it's kind of a catchphrase because you hear it for a lot of different things, right? But I really do see it as a force multiplier, to be quite honest with you. And because I think you even said it, that if you bring, a certain tool into place for somebody they need an accommodation, right? And AI could be an example of that tool, right? I was just sharing this with somebody else that, I've been writing proposals for a long time, but some of the challenges that I have, around my dyslexia and some of the other things that I have to deal with, right, is that I'm able to put out a way better product now for my proposal, for my red team reviewers and those other folks, because at least now I have AI go through, fix it. And let me tell you what, I hate the word form and the word from. There's a lot of different words, I'll just tell you, that as a dyslexic person really drive me nuts. But my team around me has learned to adjust themselves too, to accommodate for certain things. So they have like a dust and hit list of words that I flip around all the time, that they go through my proposals now and they have to go through and correct them. But I think implementing some of these tools, like mind mapping tools, right, is a great tool for somebody with ADHD. But those tools can be used for people that aren't necessarily ADHD, but it's implementing these things. And I think doing some of that, you're going to see a lot of, quick, rapid growth for people that don't necessarily need them, but they find out, man, this really does work for me. Or people that don't even know that, maybe they are ADHD or maybe they are dyslexic, and they can glean on and use some of these tools.
And I'll just jump in. So last year I had the opportunity to speak before AFCEA in San Diego. And when I concluded the discussion about Deaf CyberCon, a gentleman walked up to me who was still active duty and talked about how his hearing had been severely impacted by all of what happens when you're serving. And so to those of you who are currently serving or have served, thank you for your service. And when you talk about technology and AI, like technology for him now is a necessary component of him finishing out his career. So we can, with the right frameworks, with the right guidelines around it, we can use technology to extend someone's career, to create an opportunity for someone who may not have had it before, and really, as Dustin said, to really be able to create efficiencies in the way that people work. Again, with the understanding that that's what the person needs, right? As long as it's what the person needs, I think it is more advantageous for us having those technologies available than not.
Oh, thank you for that.
And if I could just piggyback on that a little bit, I remember when IBM had created this technology to help with veterans that were coming back with a lot of mental health and suicide challenges. And I remember it's funny because you said mind mapping, it had like a bit of that in it to kind of, sometimes your anxiety gets going and you need something to just kind of bring you back down. And this is an example of when you focus on a particular group of people or individuals that may have a bit of a challenge and you want to help address it out, everyone can win. We ended up looking at that technology and said, oh, wait, when all of these kids were coming in at the border, because I was on the health side, my colleague was on the VA side, I was like, let's think about how that feels if I don't have anyone with me and I don't speak English. And we learned the average age was a 15-year-old boy coming in. How scared, how nervous is his anxiety level now here? Oh, wait, let's now pull this in to what we were going to also offer HHS, and it's now reaching a whole nother community. So when one wins, we all win.
Okay. Thank you. We have 2 questions.
Without going too deep into it, can you please explain what neurodivergent is?
Oh, we all don't know? So neurodivergence just means that there's a different way that your brain functions from a normal person's brain, right? What's it called? Your neurotemporal, neurotypical, right? So an example is somebody with ADHD, right? Their brain like craves dopamine, and they have certain things that they have a difficult time processing, right? Like, for For instance, I always have like about 4 cups of coffee somewhere within my house, right? Not because I'm trying to make my wife real mad, but because there's this thing called cognitive disassociation. So like when I put my cup down and I walk out of a room, it's not that I want to leave my cup there. It's just that literally that cup does no longer exist anymore. My brain just automatically flips off and then I forget about that cup. So then I go make myself another cup of coffee and then I walk around and I'm like, oh, there's a cup of coffee there. That must be mine. It's just the brain working in a different, non-typical fashion. Then there's superpowers that come to that. I always tell people as well, right? So one of the things that a neurodivergent brain can do that some people can't is that I have the ability to hyperfixate and hyperfocus on things, which allows me to do a lot of work really rapidly and really fast, and you know, kind of in a short period of time. And you'd find too that a lot of people with like ADHD function really well in high stress environments because our brain again is always craving that high level of input and interaction. So it's kind of, again, it just goes down to understanding kind of what the person's particular slice of the pie is, but there's a lot of things that, you know, are considered neurodivergent, people that are, you know, have different disabilities and stuff.
Okay. Next question.
So it's a two-part question, and as a parent of a couple of neurodiverse children, my oldest son was born the day the ADA was signed into law, July 26, 1990. And we have this conversation about just how much has changed in those 33 years. And when you talk with them, they'll say, wait, they didn't have ramps? It's like, well, they did, but they weren't everywhere. You know? And they're like, well, that's just stupid. Why weren't they? Because they're looking historically. So I'd like to get your perspective on that. And the second part of that is those small changes are additive and make things better for everybody. So, you know, now older people that maybe had problems with stairs don't need to bother with it. So, you know, those two parts of it are really key for society maybe that looks at ADA as something for somebody else. So I'd just like to hear y'all's feedback on that.
So I'll start by saying I too remember the before and after with ADA. I have 2 sisters that are deaf, and my brother lost his hearing over time. So my next to the oldest sister, Loretta, was born hearing and lost her hearing when she was about 3 or 4 years old. And my youngest sister was born deaf, so she's only known a deaf world. We lived in Ohio, and there was nothing. I don't even know how. I just continue to be amazed that not only did she go to school, but she finished high school and had a career and retired and got married and those things, because there were no accommodations before. There were no interpreters. There were none of those things, and there were a number of people who decided that we needed the ADA. And so while there have been a number of successes that have come along with creating accessible physical locations and work accommodations through the ADA, I believe that there's still a lot more work that needs to be done with that.
Absolutely.
Yep.
But it's the additive power, right? So many people that weren't able to participate in society can now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I tell my kids, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. What's the Arthur Ashe quote? Start where you are, use what you can, or do what you can, use what you have.
Mm-hmm.
I think I said that's out of order, but.
Yeah, I think there's so much more that we can do. I think that all of us, I mean, part of the reason you guys were looking for me before I walked into this room is because I was on a Zoom call. I was on a Zoom call where there was closed captions and we were texting back and forth, and that wasn't created for me, but that has enabled someone like me to continue to be productive. So I think we'll continue to see more additives, because there are folks like me and others that are continuing to advocate that we expand those capabilities in ways that think about neurodivergent people, people who have hearing loss, people who have physical losses as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you even think about if you make the accommodation, the additive, now we have additional individuals that are able to bring their ideas, their brain power, I mean, how much smarter and wonderful the world is now, where it was a whole section of people that are unfortunately potentially still locked out, but now we have someone and the ones that are now part of the conversation, helping us figure out whatever problem there is in the world. And that's what you want. You want more and more people at the table bringing amazing brain power of ideas outside of even just what happens in their world, because I'm sure Dustin, you're not thinking the only thing you can do is only involved in neurodivergence.
That's actually what I was just thinking that. Yeah.
Okay.
But this is it for me. As good as it gets.
This is it.
That's it. All
think
about
there's
you.
more.
It's all about you.
Did they answer your second part as well?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, did you have a question? Absolutely. Come on down.
Really quickly, and I wrote my question down. So something you all mentioned is that there is a need, there's more work that needs to be done in regards to implementing, diverse and inclusive practices within, the cybersecurity organizations. And I think something that's kind of, not always thought about is, we bring in more people that are neurodivergent, more people of color, more women, but we don't always curate an environment that is safe for those people when they are finally let in or when they finally get those opportunities. So what would be your ideal company culture? Like, what would that look like to you? What does inclusive look like in practice, not just by metric and numbers? Just curious.
You know me, I'm jumping in first, unless you start talking.
Say, she just hit my heart right there, but go ahead.
Actually, can I
was just going to say, go to my website, my Vision IT.
So I'm going to hop in there. I work for the National Guard, and what you will see are a lot of individuals that don't look like us, per se. You always have to start at the top. You have to have somebody that can advocate for you, bring somebody else in that looks like you, and then that person will advocate to bring you in. So a good organization is a melting pot. It should be reflective of what America looks like today.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think that, so if you're saying we have an environment where people who have hearing loss are welcome, then someone else ought to be able to speak sign language or have a piece of technology that helps them to communicate that way. And if we're saying that we value people that are neurodiverse, the way that we conduct our work has to take into accommodation the fact that he works differently than I do. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? There shouldn't be any penalties associated with those differences. And if necessary, we need to take that big old monitor off of the wall in the conference room and set that in front of the person who is deaf. So it really is about, I mean, it sounds a little cliche to say accommodating, but it's a different thought process from a cultural standpoint. Instead of going, oh my gosh, Dustin wants us to say that thing over again, just accepting the fact that that's who he is, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Let's kind of think differently about the way that we work in a way that creates space for people, because to Monique's point, when you start creating space for those people, you find some really creative things. During the pandemic, I've had a technology company for over 20 years, and we've done work in all facets of the federal government and in the private sector. And during the pandemic, we had to think about a different way to do business. I had to figure out a way to have the members of my team that were not hearing involved in the same way that they would have been if we were in person. And so I kind of opened up. As a CEO, I was like, you tell me what it is that we want to do. And I ended up changing the core values for my company as a result of making a decision to do that, because I got a different perspective even on things that I may have thought about before. So culturally, I really think it is about, about making sure that there are people that look like each of us, that are in roles that are influential roles, that have a voice that can speak on their behalf.
And I mean, I quit my job because this is so passionate about me. I walked away from a company that, and making money that I'm sure my family and my friends are like, there she goes. But that's how important this is. It is so, if I didn't also go through some personal things where my mental health was challenged a decade ago, I probably wouldn't have been able to appreciate it as much. And that's normalizing healthy behavior. And healthy behavior means not, as Angela said, not, now we gotta accommodate this person. And even when Dustin took the TV off the wall, I mean, somebody walked by and was like, there they go with their special. But we need to normalize being able to help each other. And understanding, and what that means, a lot of times will mean is each individual, anyone that acts as a leader, but particularly those who are accountable officially as leadership, really taking the time to see what's going on with me that I can't shift and move and create and even see that the culture of my company needs adjustment. So if necessary, please call me and I will, no, I'm kidding. Be happy to coach you through that.
Yeah. The only thing I would like to add to that too is that a few of us are veterans. We've been in the industry a long time, right? And so any of those that follow me on social media see my tag, which is #FindYourTribe. Not every organization is going to be that. I'll just tell you, not every organization is going to be that. But trust me, there are organizations out there that are that and that will be your place. The last company that I worked for, Sean Paul works for Associ, it was the first place that I ever personally, as a person, felt that the culture matched what I was trying to do as a person. Like, I felt so good in that company, and it was like my square self found my square hole for the first time after I'd been a round hole trying to get into all these different companies and work. And then I only ever left that company because I was given the opportunity to help be part of the culture from the top down in the company I'm at now. Had I not been able to be that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I'd still be there. But now I have an opportunity to push the culture that I believe is vital, right? And that's the place that I'm supposed to be. That's why I said, you know, go to our website, because I believe this, right? I live it every day. I'm driving that in our organization. And if you feel that your organization isn't open to change, isn't open to accepting, then find your tribe is the only thing I could say, because they're out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. No, you go if you have a question. Absolutely.
So just want to let everyone else know that Dustin is partly to blame for my not wearing pants today. He changed our policy because it was too restrictive, and he opened it up and allowed me to have my freedom, and I have not worn pants since 2017. So to my question, right? So we have, there are organizations that help foster women in cybersecurity, right? So WISES. Is there any kind of organization or something sponsoring those who are trying to break into cybersecurity that are neurodivergent or hearing disabled or sight disabled or something along those lines? Are there organizations that they can go to, like on LinkedIn or somewhere else, some resources for them to go to?
So we are, CyberCon is the deaf affiliate for WISES. So we are an affiliate for women in cybersecurity, specifically focused on deaf women. WISES in particular, as it relates to women, has a number of different affiliates, so you might be able to find those. And then I'll let you guys speak to any of the other neurodivergent or other organizations that might be supporting advancing folks in cybersecurity.
Outside of, I'm not as familiar with, from an accessibility standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know of any, if there's any out
let-
there. But if anybody else is out there and they know of some, then please, let us know for sure.
So what we will do, we'll take that question down and then provide something through AFCEA. But
So I was getting ready to say just that, part of the reason why we have these sessions is because we're going to figure out what resources we need to begin to develop to have as an organization to address the requirements and needs. So we'll take that.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah, the reason why I asked is because I teach middle school and high school kids cybersecurity through the U.S. Cyber Patriot program. And we have some kids in the program that are amazing. Some of them are neurodivergent, some of them are hard of hearing. And so how do we get those guys pointed in the right direction in order to really go and cultivate their futures? That's why I was asking. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a great question.
Mr. Black.
Yes, not really a question, but to follow on what Alvy said, you know, we had a fireside chat before this with from the White House and the cyber office there, and he specifically mentioned about looking for other ways to identify or qualify people capable of doing cyber. So sometimes removing the degree requirement, so that a cyber person doesn't necessarily have to have a 4-year degree. They could have this kind of experience. This is something What the gentleman just it came up, but hasn't worn pants since 2017. This is something that I'd like to bring back to Mr. Jake Braun, the deputy up there, because he's looking for avenues out there, and they've set the cyber policy, the national cyber policy or strategy, and those kind of things. And maybe this is some of the things that we can also pass on to them.
I'm happy to help you all think through that. So the approach that we took with Deaf CyberCon was not simply to be a place where companies and federal agencies can recruit deaf people. We're really looking at what the solution is. So I work with a number of professionals, some of them who have more degrees than I do in technology, and they can't get work simply because they're deaf, not because they don't have the capability. So the approach that we've taken is to remove that barrier. As a nonprofit, we're able to get funding from sponsors. We partner up with the SANS Institute, with CompTIA, with the universities to get them the certifications that they need to get in the door. Now that's no longer a barrier to entry. So happy to talk to the White House and any other folks about how we might replicate that across the various different diverse communities, because we still do have this huge challenge. The last time that I looked, there were over over 500,000 unfilled cyber jobs, and that number isn't getting any smaller.
Yep, and if you want to reach out to Ms. Dingle, her bio is on the AFCEA International website, specifically for AFCEA TechNet Cyber. So, what?
I'm a little late to this panel, so I apologize if this topic was covered, but recruiting is a big deal. There's now organizations, recruiting organizations specifically out there, that focus on hiring neurodivergent folks. There's an industry that is leading the way on this. There's the financial industry specifically. They've identified a need where it's basically a market for them that they've ignored for decades, right? So they're very big on hiring. Pharmaceuticals are hiring neurodivergent folks. Are those lessons learned being leveraged in any way within the government?
Well, I think since we just got stumped the last question before that, the answer is probably not nearly well enough, if it is at all. So I would like to talk to you after this and get some of those websites and things that you're talking about. I mean, I do understand there's like Ability One contracts and things out there that do bring in some folks, but I think we need to bridge the gap, right? I think when you probably say Ability One, we probably all think a certain type of contract, right? Like a janitorial or something like that. And I think this definitely bridges all the way, the full spectrum. We're talking about,
Yeah, these are, sorry to cut you off, but these are professional jobs.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they start off recruiting at a younger age, either in college or just post-college. So they do have that degree requirement, but it can be waived based on the individual's needs and capabilities, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think, as Mr. Black said too, I think the government in general is the government in general has come a long way, right? With 8140 now, looking at things where you used to have you see the requirements coming out. We have to have a bachelor's degree plus this certification plus your lineage and these other components to get this job. Now it's basically it's a role, right? And it's based off, you don't even need to have the certification if you have a degree in. I mean, why would you need a PMP if you have a whole master's degree in project management? That just doesn't make sense, right? So I think we're starting to see that shift in industry as well with some of the new changes in 8140, which I'm excited about, but hopefully that will also limit some of the barriers to inclusivity as well, right? Because it's a different population. They don't necessarily have all the same access to things. So hopefully it'll.
And I'll say that the government, I used to see it do the 508 compliance for the National Guard. So I would say that that's something the government has started to focus on over the past couple of years, tracking. Yeah. Just 508 compliancy, which is accessibility on the federal level. I think those conversations have to be had between your HR as well as with your compliance people. That conversation hasn't happened yet. And so I think that's the direction we need to go.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just want to add, like, recruiting alone is not the answer. You can, as soon as as soon as Def CyberCon existed and people heard about it, they go, oh man, I never thought to go recruit from Gallaudet University. You can go recruit from Gallaudet University all that you want to, but if you don't know how to create a culture where people can be successful in the workplace, it doesn't work. Yes. So a program like, and I'm looking for the gentleman, I didn't see which direction he went in, a program like that doesn't necessarily solve the challenge. It has to be more than that, right? It has to be HR with the people that are leading the work and the technology and other policies and accommodations that go along with it.
Great point.
Okay, and I know Allison said we have 1 minute left, so we have time for one question. Okay.
Perfect. I understand we're a little short on time here. Thank you so much.
Don't even worry about it. Keep
For
going.
making light to the accessibility in diversity and inclusion, something that I didn't really think about all that much. I come from an IT services and staffing background. I'm curious, I know it's from a top down, but how have your organizations generated buy-in? Is there something, whether it's a seminar or a daily reading or a blog, that I could take back to my organization? And I guess, what have you seen to be successful? Whether it's day-long, week-long, month-long, it's something that needs to start to kick off. But how have you guys generated buy-in within your organizations? And is there anything tangible that I can take back to mine?
Well, I'm the CEO of mine, so I get to set the tone there. But when I work with Fortune 500 companies, we do a combination of things. We assess where leadership is. For instance, our focus is on deaf workers. So have any of you all ever met someone that's deaf or hard of hearing? Do you work with anyone? Is there anyone in your family? Who on your team speaks sign language or understands any of those types of things? So you get a sense of where leadership is. Then you talk about what technology is available internally, right? And then we simply help people understand the differences, right? And why it's important to accept those differences. We also do some things from a community standpoint. We call them Hack for Impact. I get deaf people and hearing people in a room together in a networking environment, and I turn the tables. Instead of all the hearing people being the ones who are running the networking, it's actually deaf, and it is an eye-opener for people at all levels to understand how very different and important we all are to the conversation. So
I think that is the last question. Hopefully, did it answer.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So number one, just thank you all for your questions. Thank you to the panel members. Excellent conversation. I think we could have went overtime if we had the time.
Well, we got kicked out earlier.
We got kicked out.
Yesterday we got kicked out early, so we just take 45 minutes from yesterday's time.
But I know it's time for happy hour for most folks.
So I have a couple of things. I just wanted to say to Dustin, Monique, Angela, and Kenneth, our inclusion warriors, thank you. Your passion for leading, your passion for diversity is why you're here today. I also like to give a thank you to Lieutenant General Susan Lawrence for setting this as a priority for AFCEA. I'd like to thank our IDEA committee for bringing us this topic, and I'd like to thank Allison Hansard for her coordination.
Thank you, Allison.
As a thank you to our panelists, a donation to the Schrader Graduate Diversity Scholarship awarded to full-time women or minority students enrolled in at least their second semester and at least 2 semester equivalent courses currently pursuing a graduate degree will be made in your name on behalf of AFCEA.
Yay.
Thank you all for your time today, and a big thank you again to our sponsor, Sienna, and your co-sponsor, Increditech.